Do more by doing less. With me, Charles Alexander, for small business owners, startups, and busy folks.
Looks like you've been missing a lot of work lately.
I wouldn't say I've been missing it, Bob.
What do you mean funny? Funny how? How am I funny?
Clark, that's the gift that keeps on giving the whole year.
Poor Linda. She was tired of looking for a job, or at least that's the way she explained it to me. She'd been out of work. It wasn't that long, 2-3 months. And she just kept telling me how she wouldn't lower herself to be a greeter at Walmart. Now, why that's the gold standard for entrepreneurs as they launch a business, I have no clue, but that's usually what everybody brings up. And she had always had an office job. She had always been around others. She enjoyed it. She had always been in some kind of coordinator, admin role. Even though her title didn't always reflect it, she was kind of the one who ran the place, so to speak, at the past few businesses she'd been in. She always worked in small business. And now she has become her own business owner. She had been open for a few years now. She's giving me her origin story. And Linda was frustrated. She was always great at making sure that she was herding cats, talking to customers, and getting everybody on board. She's the one that brought the brownies to work, the donuts in the morning. And she even figured out how to use the computer. And I can tell you, when somebody says the computer, I know we're in trouble. But now she was out, she was downsized out of both jobs, and people wouldn't hire her because of her age, according to Linda. And I don't discount that. So she finally decided to just take the bull by the horns and do something she always wanted to do, become a florist. As she told me, if you do what you love, you never work a day in your life. And so many people that tell me that work like dogs. She decided this was her future. She took a couple of floral classes at the local community college and picked up on what she had decided to do. She found the perfect spot in town, had the perfect name, and off she went. So Linda was the job seeker turned business, what we're going to cover now, for not just startups, but people who've been around and in business for a long time still struggle with a lot of the reasons that got them to where they are. What was their origin story? What are they still telling themselves? And what are they still replaying over and over that keeps them from growing their business, being happy, or moving forward? The job seekers. And the job seekers aren't just boomers that feel like they've aged out. This happens all the way around. I'm Gen X, and I see a lot of people that are around my age that are downsized, frustrated, need a career change. So what they do is create a job, or even kids that are straight out of school or have been out a few years. Millennials are no longer the youngsters on the block, but there are several that still have never found their footing. So they create a job with their business. This is not always the right reason. I can tell you, as somebody who worked for a large franchisor for years, ServPro, I worked in the training department, and as we would have this brand new class every month, 20 people usually from all over the country, and we'd have them all introduce themselves. Who are you? Where are you here? Why did you want to buy a ServPro? Not often, but every once in a while, we'd have somebody stand up and say, well, and I don't know why they had a country accent. They could be from the Northeast, but I can't do one of those. They'd say, well, I couldn't find a job, so I needed to create one. And you could just hear the audible cringe across the room because you knew that person was later going to be in trouble. For example, there was also the franchise buyers that I had worked with at one point, and they had been in business for a few years now. Their origin story looked more like the husband and wife team. They wanted to band together, get rid of their corporate lives, and move forward. And by corporate life, the husband had the corporate life, and he was miserable. He was working upwards of 45 to 50 hours a week, so they wanted to get him out of that. Let's go start a business. Great. The wife had been big in the corporate world. She came back home. She was in charge of the household, also the PTO, all things nonprofit in her community, and she was a straight go-getter. She was going to help him get this thing locked and loaded. They decided to buy a Froyo franchise. You remember Froyo, right? Frozen yogurt. And we still have some. Love frozen yogurt. And I can tell you, I've seen every phase of people go through what the latest trend is. Went through it through cupcakes for a long time. And Froyo was hot. Cigar parlors around here became big. Vape stores. Gosh, and now even CBD, which is great. But we had, people starting CBD stores in the small town I'm in. We had 5 overnight, and 4 people had never ran or even knew a thing about it, but that was the new thing to do. And this was their thing to do. And the wife thought Froyo would be recession proof, right? Because when people are happy, they're going to eat ice cream. When people are sad, they're going to eat ice cream. I'm calling it ice cream, and it's not. I apologize. But they had to take out a second mortgage on their home. And they just knew that this was going to be the next thing ahead for them. And it was tough. We'll come back to them in a minute. So that's the dynamic duo, the husband-wife team. And I love franchises, so don't take it as a knock on franchises. Please listen to the episode I have with the Giuseppe Grammatico, the franchise guy, and he can tell you the do's and don'ts of it. And then third story here is the Desperator. The Desperator is the guy who has been sitting at his job for years now. You usually see this quite a bit with white collar. And he was going through a bit of what I would call a midlife crisis. He was tired of the 9-to-5 grind, and he was telling me about how he got started years ago, looking out of the glass windows. I'm pointing, listener here, this helps you 0% to my glass windows. And he was just watching the guy mow the lawn, and he's like, man, I could do that. Just put in my earbuds and just listen to sports talk radio, mow the yard all day. And then he saw what he considered an epiphany. The car dealership across the road had a food truck. Mike always loved food trucks. And by always loved, he just started watching diners, drive-ins, and dives and saw a food truck and thought, yep, I love food trucks. He decided to throw off the shackles of the 9-to-5, and that's what he's doing. He's going to be the food truck guy. Okay, so in doing that, he was married at the time, gave me a little history about him and his wife, a little rocky, whatever. He figured out how to scrap together enough cash to do it, and even justified it, talking about how his dad had basically worked 40 years at the same place and always regretted it. And by always regretted it, I asked him, what does dad say? He said, well, he never had to say. Oh, okay, so your dad maybe regretted it, maybe not. All of these stories almost make it sound like all the people I work with are tough, desperate, or in a bad spot. Almost all of the small business I work with are fantastic. They grow their business. They have rough spots. They figure it out. We work together. We pull through whatever the issues are, and they move forward. Nobody ever asks about those stories, though. They like the emergency room stories where things are not quite as well. And I guess that's where we learn, is through a lot of our failures. In looking at this, starting out with desperation, or this big dream that you've got because you're tired of doing what you're doing, it rarely ever works out. And it drags on to your business 5-10 years down the road. I still love small business ownership and entrepreneurs because, a job is riskier. A job, you've got one source of income, or you've got a lousy boss or an idiot coworker that make that job miserable. And you can't always really make your own decisions. A business in some ways can be safer, more fun. You can have as many streams of income as you choose. You can make as much money as you figure out as to what to do. You can even hand select who you work with. And you get to call most or all of the shots. The decisions are up to you. However, you have to get past whatever reasons that are holding you back right now. And for some of you, it's the old origin story of how you got started, and you're replaying that over and over and over. So if you've got an origin story, and all of these that I mentioned, maybe they're more hands-on or blue collar. A lot of the people I work with are in an advisory role, whether you're a coach or you're, let's say, a financial advisor, or you are an agent. I've had people with those same histories come in and try to figure out, what do I do next? And they're letting whatever those original reasons still kind of pin them down. If you're at a point where your business feels stuck, you've plateaued, you're replaying the same soundtrack in your head over and over, the first thing you have to do is get really honest. Why did I start this specific business? Where is it that I'm at now that's different than 10 years ago or 20 years ago? Now that you've decided why you're in business and you know the why behind your business, and yes, the why is very important. It sounds very frou-frou, and I've even mocked it many times because so many people overdo the why. But if you can figure out that why portion of what you want going forward, then you're good. You can scrap that old story. That's the second thing. Now I've got my why. I know where I'm supposed to be going. I know what I want to do. Let's create some new goals. I'm talking about it doesn't matter if you're mid-year, end-year, whatever. Scrap it. Here's where I want to be. And not only here's where I want to be, here's who I have to become in order to achieve that. And if your goals are realistic, which they need to be, you can't go from 100,000 to 1,000,000, or rarely. But if, let's say your goals are, I'm at 800 or 750 and I want to be $1 million business owner, or insert whatever zero you want, you got to become the person that is $1 million owner, or a $10 million owner, or 100 million. You've got to be that individual. So create not just the goal to do it, but who you have to become in order to achieve that. Then thirdly, who else is going to help you do this? Write it down. Is it a business coach that's going to hold your hand and walk you through the fire? Is it a CPA that's going to review your books regularly? Is it the financial advisor I was just talking about that's going to help you figure out your future to such a point where you can risk additional capital if need be? Who's the team that's going to help you do it? Figure these things out. And then lastly, you got to continue to work, as cheesy as this sounds, on your own mindset, your own frame of not just where I started, but where I want to be, and change that story going forward. As for these other entrepreneurs, Linda did start her business. She even had a cute name for it, My Little Peony. Peony is a flower. Her granddaughter liked ponies. This was a confusing name. And she did it for years. And she felt trapped most of the time. She never got over that original story that she was forced into this, and she never got good at the computer, and she's working harder than ever. And she's still there. She's making about minimum wage, and it's time for her to change that story. The franchise buyers, turns out that the froyo place was not recession proof after all. They blamed everybody under the sun. They had risked a lot. They'd taken a big leap. They didn't do a lot of planning. They didn't know their why. They didn't change their goals, and they blamed the franchisor. They blamed the community. And now they're both back in the corporate world, and he's working his 45, 50-hour job, and she's working a 55 to 60-hour job. And lastly, good old Mike. He's a desperator, which is not a real word, but whatever. He got that food truck going. He hit some success right out of the gate. Life was good, and then things kind of plateaued. And then he also felt like maybe this wasn't what he needed to do. Maybe he needed this next thing. Maybe he should go back and be the landscaper. Maybe not. He's still in business, and he's still got that origin story to deal with. As for you and I, think of the reason that you're in business. Think about why you do what you do. For most of us, we want to help other people. That is a common occurrence amongst a lot of the successful entrepreneurs. They want to help other people. And even if it's in a business that is very, let's say, product or widget oriented, maybe you're helping the other people on your team. They're learning, they're growing. They love working for you. And if it's advisory based, the people you support that learn from you, focus on that. Ditch the old origin story, and then you'll be able to break out of the plateau, move forward, and I won't be talking about you on the podcast. Wait, don't run off just yet. Do me a big favor, hit the little plus sign to subscribe, scroll down wherever you are, and leave a very honest 5-star review and tell other people why they should be listening. And if you don't, an angel may in fact lose its wings. True story. Have a great day.